Today, Schwarzenegger is here to hand out more than $400,000 in prizes. But he's also here to see some old friends who have gathered backstage. Many of the original bodybuilders from the pumping iron era. Bill Grant, Ed Corney, Mike Katz, Franco Columbu, and Lou Ferrigno.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Terrific.
There was camaraderie. We helped each other. We trained each other. We were a part of a family.
Where's your son? Where's Michael?
Right there.
Michael, come over here.
Good.
Michael. How's it going? Okay, good to see you. 25 years ago, we saw in Pumping Iron, we saw the little Michael. He was 3 years old. And then he made you pose. Remember, he made you hit shots.
Ooh, it's hard. Feel this muscle, how hard that is.
Just everyone is so huge. What's going on here? I'm the...
Still got it. 25 years.
Can you believe that?
Pumping iron. It changed my whole life.
Are you going to give him all the wrong advices?
It's not that hard for me to give him the wrong advices.
No, only the right advice.
It was so much fun and enthusiasm.
Great. Oh.
It was incredible.
Let me tell you, she said, now she's his mother talking about my mother. He's talking about pumping up.
He's talking about pumping up. He's talking about psyching me out.
You couldn't shut me up then. You can't shut me up now. It's always the same. Nothing has changed.
Whenever I think back on the Pumping Iron days in the 1975 when we did this movie, I definitely miss it.
Back before Pumping Iron, he was known as the Austrian Oak, but he was unknown outside the marginal and misunderstood sport called competitive bodybuilding.
It was a tiny little world, and 300 people would come to the contest that night. They would go crazy over Arnold Schwarzenegger, so he was king of 300 people. Wow. It's just that Arnold hadn't burst out of that world yet.
Photographer George Butler and writer Charles Gaines were fascinated with the bodybuilding subculture and collaborated on a book they called Pumping Iron, which featured the young Austrian bodybuilder. Butler wanted to turn it into a film, but Arnold wanted to retire. Since moving to America in 1968, he'd won the sport's top prize, Mr. Olympia, an unprecedented 5 times, and he'd had enough.
George Butler came to me and says, I have a great idea. We should do a movie, but it only will work if you're in it. And if you retire now, you can't be in it, so that doesn't work.
Butler knew the weird and wacky world of bodybuilding had all the makings of a fascinating movie, but how to get investors aboard, it would be a tough sell. It was, after all, the 70s, the height of the counterculture revolution. The last thing on anyone's mind was muscle men.
It gave me a very formidable obstacle to overcome, which is to say, how do I make Arnold Schwarzenegger fashionable in the era in which the most celebrated model in the world was Twiggy? In the back of my mind, I knew that throughout history, there had always been at least one worldwide bodybuilder. Sandow at the turn of the century was one of the highest paid entertainers in the world. Charles Atlas in the 20s and 30s. Steve Reeves in the 50s made a fortune in the movies.
After convincing Arnold to compete for one more Mr. Olympia title, first-time director Butler jumped headfirst into filmmaking.
Okay, you got the 8? 8. Head slate.
Just talk to these two guys here.
The concept was simple. Shoot the intense training leading up to the Mr. Olympia, then shoot the competition itself. Just let the story unfold in front of the camera. He started by shooting a test film for investors. In this never-before-seen footage, the first frames ever shot for Pumping Iron, Arnold pumps up backstage for a posing exhibition.
Wenn Nixon gets impeached. It's just too much pressure, you know. I mean, I'm competing now for 10 years, and after 10 years, I feel like it's enough, you know. You have to let other people have a chance, and just leave as a winner.
Yeah. Suppose Louis beats you.
He doesn't. There's no such thing.
For years now, since 1970, I was like unbeatable. And there was no hope for anyone to come close. It just didn't exist because I knew once I have the title, there's no way anyone is going to take it.
But if an Arnold win was inevitable, where was the drama? Where was the conflict? Every movie hero has to show his stuff by pushing up against an obstacle. Butler had to find it.
I wanted to find a great antagonist for Arnold, and there was Louis Ferrigno in Brooklyn, New York, 6'8", 270, dark and foreboding.
Muscle magazine publisher Joe Weider had already had his eye on Ferrigno. For Weider, the old story Arnold wins again was growing stale. But a Mr. Olympia showdown between Lou and Arnold, this was perfect, and exactly the kind of rivalry that sells magazines.
He won the Mr. Universe contest in 1974 in Italy. Weider came back, I remember, like it was like a fresh breath of air. With a new champion on the horizon.
Well, I had to stimulate them. And when I go into the gym and I saw him pick up 500 pounds, he says, "What do you think, Joe?" I said, "Oh, not bad. You can do better than that." He got mad.
So he would create this whole thing, and you know, and I think it was really good because the fans loved all that, and that's exactly what I played up then in the movie Pumping Iron.
In this outtake from Pumping Iron, Weider and Schwarzenegger discussed the very real possibility that the champ might actually lose to the larger and hungrier Ferrigno.
You were the one who saw Lou in New York just a few days ago, so how does he look?
He looks very, very massive.
Well, he was my idol, part of me getting into bodybuilding. Of course, when you have an idol like Arnold, you want to beat your idol to be the best.
Wait till they see these dogs in Africa. Terrific. Big enough to eat.
Butler had his antagonist.
Since 1969, nobody has beaten me, so why should he come around now all of a sudden and break my record?
I don't know, he's training real hard.
Well, you will
He's
see.
He's massive, and he's built almost like you.
No.
What happens if you are defeated?
To enhance the drama, the filmmakers had to pump up the conflict.
This is for the big baby, Louis.
This is where documentary filmmaking is so effective, because you can do something with real people that a novelist just couldn't imagine.
You create dialogue and hostility towards one another in order to make the movie more interesting. If it is just a sport, that you can see for 10 minutes and then you have seen it all. But if you see the personalities and you can follow them.
A showdown was set. The Golden King versus the Dark Prince.
Well, I was a bit of an outsider at that time in that world because I was the only one back training in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn versus Venice, California, a bizarre beach town, a refuge for artists and hippies, weirdos and wackos. In its own strange way, bodybuilding fit right in. If the sport had an epicenter, it was the legendary Gold's Gym, which is where the filmmakers began shooting.
Come on, Franco. What is this bullshit? Yeah. No, side chest, not front chest, Franco, side. Yeah, these things change a little bit when we go to the side. Hey, look, Franco, what you have to do is when I say side chest, then hit the side chest and then it come out. And if you don't have it, don't hit it. No, don't hit it. Don't hit it.
We had camaraderie that was incredible. We'd train together. We'd go to the Gold's Gym at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's where everybody would meet. And I mean, the energy that came out of that little gym, it was only about 5,000 square feet. It could probably light up the city of Los Angeles.
It's the mecca of bodybuilding.
When I got out of here, there was only this little bitty gym sitting out here close to the beach. I mean, it wasn't much bigger than the YMCA where I'm from.
It was like a house. And it was only basic weights.
That's the only place we knew. That was home to us.
The public at that point didn't accept what we were doing. They didn't understand what we were doing. That was one of the joys of doing Pumping Iron, that people could really see that we just weren't big, huge people with muscles.
We were all kind of tied together like this. We worked out together, we ate together, we were partying together.
Rent was cheap. By day, they trained at Gold's or on nearby Muscle Beach, and at night, they let off steam, often at Arnold's bachelor pad in Santa Monica.
The main man is here, guys.
The cameras never stop rolling.
Mr. Universe 1975. Cheers to the Mr. World, Robbie Robertson. Hey, wait a minute, let him hit a double shot, a double bicep shot for this lady here. Hit it quickly, hit a double bicep shot. Come on now, hit 3 shots. All right, all right.